All righty, so welcome everyone. And we have a challenging piece of scripture today from Luke's Gospel. And I grew up with the Revised Standard Version of the Bible. And of course, this is the ESV, the English Standard Version. And it refers to this parable as the parable of the dishonest manager. I always knew it as the parable of the dishonest steward. And the steward was someone who was responsible for taking care of his employer or his master's possessions. And steward sounds more biblical and faithful and theological than manager, but in any event, it is a challenging parable. And as I was just looking at it, I noticed something I'd never noticed before. But why don't we begin with a word of prayer? Lord God, we give you thanks for calling us together once again. We give you thanks for the rain of the last few days, much needed. As we gather, we take a moment to open our hearts and our minds to the moving of your Spirit, your counselor. We ask that we receive your wisdom humbly. And wherever life's journey may take us in the day and the week to come, that we live it faithfully. We ask this as disciples of the risen Christ. Amen. All righty, so as I say, it's a puzzling and perplexing parable for a lot of people because it seems like Jesus is encouraging us to be deceitful and devious, but there's actually a lot in this parable for us today. So let us listen to the parable.
Luke 16. He also said to the disciples, "There was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was wasting his possessions. And he called him and said to him, 'What is this that I hear about you? Turn in the account of your management, for you can no longer be manager.' And the manager said to himself, 'What shall I do, since my master is taking the management away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I have decided what to do, so that when I am removed from management, people may receive me into their houses.' So summoning his master's debtors one by one, he said to the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' He said, 100 measures of oil.' He said to him, 'Take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. Then he said to another, 'And how much do you owe?' He said, 100 measures of wheat.' He said to him, 'Take your bill and write 80. The master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. And I tell you.'"
All righty. By the way, the footnotes give a little bit of information on the amount of oil and wheat that we're talking about here. So a measure of, was it olive oil? Or it just says oil, a measure of oil, but that's what it's referring to as olive oil. So a measure is about 875 gallons. So a significant amount here. And then a measure of wheat is between 1,000 and 1,200 bushels. So again, a significant amount. So what do you make of the parable of the dishonest steward?
He was inventive, certainly.
What's that?
He was inventive.
He was inventive. He was kind of clever. He certainly found a way out of his dilemma, or a potential. It says that he's basically setting himself up so that when he is, quote unquote, unemployed, he will have some prospective clients. Here's a question, though, that comes to mind. you're the owner, or excuse me, you're the person who owes the 100 measures of oil. You're the person who owes 100 measures of wheat. This guy has done you a favor, he saved you a lot of money. Are you going to hire someone who is dishonest like that?
I think the term discount needs to be brought into this.
Discount?
The concept of
Oh,
discount.
a discount. So he's giving him a discount.
He's giving them a discount.
But does he have the authority to give that discount?
Well, he does the managing. So as a manager, he may,
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know what he was given for latitude, but he may, and his owner, in seeing that, may have said, by giving a discount, I may get my money sooner.
May get your money sooner. Okay. So what you're saying, Don, is that there are details to the parable that we don't, the devil is in the detail. So he may have had that latitude to give a discount. So yeah, it's certainly something that cannot be discounted as a possibility.
So if that were the case, if he was not managing well, which is implied in the first part of it, and he was lazy in his job, maybe this showed initiative.
It's possible. We don't know why. Well, we do know why. He's wasting his possessions. It doesn't say what wasting actually means.
Meaning he's not getting paid, which may be wasting. He should have been going after the money. He should have been bill collecting.
Yeah.
The bill collecting may be, well, if you take it down to a list, you may get your money a little faster, which is management.
Okay. All right. So yes, there are details that we don't know that could add to the story. And again, the point of a parable is to make a simple truth. And sometimes we can get led astray by trying to fill in the blanks. As interesting as it may be, it's not front and center when it comes to what the parable is trying to do. It is fascinating, though. I'll tell you one detail that I never noticed before. It is in verse 6 and verse 7. And this is a little detail to the story that we do know about that made me stop and think, wow, he really was shrewd, this steward. He was definitely shrewd. Do you see what he does in 6 and 7 that lends to it? What's that? Yep.
Quickly write down.
Okay, and quickly write down. And why does that show his shrewdness?
Changing the figures so it looks like less, obviously.
Yes, looks like less. Here's the detail that I found fascinating. I never noticed it before. Who actually alters the bill?
Oh, he makes sure the person.
He makes sure that's the person who owes it. He doesn't do it himself.
No.
So if there's any legal proceedings, he could say, well, that's not my writing. He has created a measure of deniability here.
That's the discount part that I was talking about. He's saying, you may have a discount, write down this figure.
Right, but why doesn't he write it down himself?
But he didn't create the bill. The bill is created by the person who's selling it. So he's saying, I'm offering you a chance to lower the amount.
No.
Which puts him in good stead with the
These are people who owe his master. So the bill is coming from the master to the person who has apparently purchased 100 measures of oil and 100 measures of wheat. And so he's saying, you got 100 measures of oil delivered to you,
only charge you for.
but we're only going to charge you 50 but I'm not going to change that number. I'm going to have you do it.
Interesting point.
Yeah.
Interesting point. I didn't look at that way.
Yeah, he's creating a scenario where you can say, that's not my writing. You know, if the owner, the master, had decided to take him to court, so to speak, the steward has a measure of deniability. I didn't do that. They did it. Yeah, I had not thought of that ever before. And that's why I love reading scripture, is because I've read this parables many times and I've never connected the dots on that little detail. So he is shrewd, and he creates a situation where he has potential employees. And, you know, back to what we were saying before, why would you want to hire somebody who is dishonest like he was? Well, it also just occurred to me that he has some leverage over these people. And say, you know, why don't you give me a job? Or I might tell my master what you did. Because it's a person who,
leverage,
yeah, it gave him more leverage because they're the ones that changed the figure. So he could go to the master and say, hey, I caught this guy, you know, changing the figures on what he owes you. So he's very shrewd.
The very last line is, for the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light.
Yeah, let's look at and notice that the master commends.
Yeah.
He doesn't condemn the dishonest steward. He commends him. Verse 8, and you're right, Don. I think this is the key to the entire parable.
Yeah.
The master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness. Okay, so that there is telling us, Jesus says, you need to be like this guy in the parable. And then he says, for the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. What does that mean?
The craftiness of this world rather than the world beyond us. Is there an honesty, not a naivety, but an innocence, a purity in dealing in matters of the spirit versus matters of the flesh?
Okay, I'm just writing a note here or something in the sermon. So you're saying that there's a distinction between matters of the spirit, matters of the flesh.
I'm differentiating between the material world and the
spiritual. There's differentiating between the material and the spiritual world. Okay, and
the spiritual world has no concern for that shrewdness. That doesn't exist in the spiritual world. Yeah.
But he's saying this generation, and he's making a contrast between the sons of this world and the sons of light. Okay.
The sons of this world deal with the now, here, and physical. The sons of light forever.
Yeah, but the sons of light, Jesus seems to be saying that the sons of light need to be more like the sons of this world right now. As you go about your day-to-day business. Yep. I think that, let me ask you this question. When people do wrong, they can be pretty creative about it.
Oh, yeah.
They can be pretty ingenious. And how do you counter? So right now, we're living in a time where you open up the newspaper and you see all kinds of things that are just, in fact, I was going to start the sermon by saying, what is this world coming to? And, you know, I open the newspaper and I see headlines that say, once in a 1,000-year floods hit Pakistan. Heat wave in California out west, worse than they've ever had. In fact, I think I saw where the Death Valley set the highest global temperature for the month of September. And we've got floods down in Georgia and in Texas. And you've got a politician who shall go nameless saying that there's going to be civil war in the streets. And you have, what's going on in Ukraine with, the Russian invasion. And you look at all of these things, and hate crimes. Hate crimes are going through the roof. And, you look at all of this, and so there is no doubt that the sons of this world, at least according to the parable, are very, word here, shrewd, but very determined
in this generation, the people now. That in this generation, to me, means now. Right.
And the now was when Jesus told the parable. The now is for those hearing it today. Okay. And Jesus is actually making a criticism here. You think about it. He's criticizing people of faith.
But not living today.
No. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. What does he mean by that? The sons.
We're more concerned about now than our future.
I don't think it's a question of today versus tomorrow. He's talking about how people are living their lives in the present moment, okay? And he's saying that the sons of this world can be very creative, very determined, very clever in pursuing things that are contrary to the will of God. And he's saying that people of faith aren't as dedicated, as ambitious, as resourceful in doing God's will. Remember what Martin Luther King Jr. said about what evil people need to succeed.
Great people doing that.
That's right, Jim. Martin Luther King Jr. said, and I made it generic, but he said, sometimes the only thing evil men need to succeed is good men do nothing. Okay? And, I think there's a sense of a lackadaisical. Jesus is really criticizing people for not being as focused in doing the will of God as people who are not doing the will of God. And I think there's some truth in that.
So that intransigency goes along with that story of the person on the roof in the flood waiting for God to help.
Yeah, kind of sitting back and waiting for God to take care of it. And, it just made me think of the story about, the man who sees a child begging in the street of a city. And he looks up to the heavens and he says, God, why don't you do something about that? And God said, I did. I created you. I think that there's a challenge here, okay, to people of faith to redouble their efforts in following the risen Christ and being that light to the world. And there are two reasons why we need to do that. Okay, And I will tell you that I look at everything that's going on and I get very nervous about what's to come. And so the challenge is to redouble your faith, so to speak. And the two reasons why is to help make it possible for you to get through all of the storms, okay? And also to be that light that shines into the darkness. And I have become very convinced that that is God's mission. That is God's call for us in this community of faith at a time where there's so much hate and demonizing people, that God is calling us to show this community and beyond that there is a better way of living and relating to each other.
So in another perspective, you're saying that when you come to church every Sunday and you fortify your own faith, it does you no good if you don't carry that out in the community and do something.
Yeah, I think it's both. And you know, look at church attendance, okay? Basically across the board. Now, I would be the first to say that we, and I mean we as people of faith in general, deserve some of the blame for that. Okay, and we've given people reasons to distrust, quote unquote, organized religion. People in our society see organized religion as a big part of the problem, frankly. And you know, you look just over the last couple of weeks, there was a preacher who scolded his congregation because they hadn't bought him a Rolex yet.
Because they have what?
They had not bought him a Rolex watch. And let me see if I can find this here really quickly. Or some kind of watch. It might have not have been a watch. Let's see if I can. Yeah, here it is. Okay. Let's see. A Missouri pastor was caught on camera berating his congregation, broken quotation marks, and it's actually showing a video, for failing to buy him an expensive Movado watch. I've never heard of it. Sparking criticism that he wants to make a profit, not be a prophet. Has a great name, Pastor Carlton Funderburk of the Church at the Well in Kansas City. Sermon about honoring God's shepherds, when he scolded his followers for being too poor to give him the pricey timepiece he requested. I'm trying to think. Okay, so this is actually what he says. See, that's how I know you still poor, broke, busted, and disgusted because of how you've been honoring me. I'm not worth your McDonald's money. I'm not worth your Red Lobster money. I ain't worth your St. John's knit, whatever that is. Y'all can't afford it no how. Yeah, you know, and you know, there was another story about a pastor who had to take a leave of absence because of inappropriate text messages with somebody in his congregation. And there was no, it wasn't sexual in nature, but it was it had crossed the line. It really had. Yep.
So in all fields of endeavor, occupation, including clergy,
Mm-hmm.
you get people who get a calling for it.
Yep.
And you get opportunities to go into
Opportunists, and clergy.
That's what you're describing.
Yeah, clergy are no different than anybody else in some respects. But it isn't just clergy, because you have congregations that are basically towing the line when it comes to get rid of all of these foreigners and waving the American flag, and
You have managers.
yeah, you get managers. So Jesus is being a little critical. He's saying that the people in this world who are intent on not doing God's will are better at that than the people who say they want to do God's will. And it just made me think of what's the word I'm trying to think of? Well, it was actually a sermon that someone gave a long time ago, and it's a question: if you were arrested for being a Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict you? Billy Sunday, an evangelist back in the 1930s, I think, he said, a person going into a sanctuary on Sunday morning makes them no more a Christian than putting a wheelbarrow in a garage makes it a car. It's back to what you were saying, Don. It isn't just what you do there, although that's important. I mean, that's where
it isn't just. That's important.
Mm-hmm, yep. You recharge your cell phones. Well, I got this watch I have to recharge. Our spiritual batteries have to be recharged.
But we have to do something with it once it's recharged.
That's right. That's right. So when you recharge your cell phone, you just don't put it over in a drawer somewhere for the rest of the week and let the battery slowly run down. You use it. And so Jesus is saying that people of faith need to be as committed to using their faith and doing God's will as the people who are not doing, God's will. It's like I said in the sermon Sunday, the story about the guy who scammed the kid. The kid sets up a lemonade stand, and the guy gets the kid to give him $85, and he gives the kid a counterfeit $100 bill. Now I get thinking about that a little bit more, and in some respects, it's a little similar to the parable in the sense of, is it possible that the guy didn't realize it was a counterfeit bill?
No.
It's not possible.
No, it's not possible because of the technique he used. When you read the whole story, he's setting the kid up for it.
Okay, he's setting the kid up for it.
He knew he only had a $100 bill.
Yeah.
He figured the kid's doing good enough, so I can get his money.
Yeah. Although I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Would you walk up to a lemonade stand with a $100 bill? In most cases, I can't believe a person doing it.
Okay, so a person wouldn't, yeah. I'm wondering what would have happened if the kid had said, well, I only have $15.
That probably would have been the end of it.
That would have been the end of
The
it?
investment wouldn't have been good enough the way he was working.
Okay. So the guy who showed up with the $100 bill, he was sort of on a fishing expedition.
Oh, He might have settled for 50, depending on his outlook.
Yeah, yeah. But how many kids with a lemonade stand have $85?
Well, now, when you see the stories on television of kids who are running lemonade stands to help in the war in Ukraine and things like that, they are getting money like that.
Yeah, they are. There's a story in the transcript last week, front page, about a couple of kids. Yeah. You know, and, you know, I might reference that story again this Sunday because it fits with what we're talking about here. Okay. In that you have this guy who's very clever, shrewd, in scamming an 11-year-old kid. But you also have sons and daughters of light who raised $9,253. You know, so you know that's encouraging. You know, it's the story says, yep, there's some bad people out there that are not doing God's will, but there are good people, and that's what we're saying is we have to nurture, we have to fan the flames of the goodness, so to speak, and it starts with ourselves, and we need to do that so that we can make it through this crazy, mixed up world.
You know, when you see that and the money that the people gave, say, oh, there's some really good people out there. And then we have to look introspectively and say, are we one of the good people? Are we doing?
Yep.
Really
are we one of them?
Yeah. It's nice to be nice, fuzzy, warm, and look at good things. Isn't that nice? But are we part of it?
Yeah. You know, Jesus is basically saying, not only do you have to choose sides, but you have to decide if you're just going to sit on the bench all the time. Are you going to get in the game? And are you going to go the extra mile when it comes to your faith? And can you remember a time when you went the extra mile when it comes to your faith?
Or can you remember a time when I should have done that?
Or I wish I had done that. I wish I had done that.
And you say, how many wishes wish I had done it do we have? Or how many really have I done it? And which side do I want to be on? I should be on the I've done it or I will do it rather than I should have done it.
Yeah. What's the saying? There's no such thing as an unemployed Christian. And I guess another way of putting it, using that analogy, is are you working part-time?
Or
at all. Yeah. Which leads to another whole issue. You know, we hear a lot about people railing and ranting against welfare. Okay. And there's a question I think that everybody has to ask themselves when they're sitting in the sanctuary or watching the live stream on Sunday morning. Am I on spiritual welfare? Am I letting others carry my share of the load here?
Another side to it, from a positive viewpoint, our church and many churches advocate for doing the right thing by doing the clothesline for taking things in and giving in winter on.
So we do Operation Clothesline.
By individually doing suitcases. We have a food pantry over here.
Yeah, we have the food pantry.
We do encourage participation. On it. And the motivational part is how do we get the people who are here saying, oh, it's so nice to do this, to say, look in the mirror, are you one who does it? Do you participate?
I sometimes refer to what I call the BCDs of the Christian faith, not the ABCs, the BCDs. Okay, we believe, and because we believe, we care, and because we care, we do. And it's at the heart of, what did Jesus say? Those who will follow me must take up their cross. He's talking about a life of service. That's why I've always liked the story of, oh my God, Simon of Cyrene. Gold star. Anybody can remember where we see Simon of Cyrene in the Gospels? Yeah. Simon of Cyrene is the guy who helped Jesus carry his cross. He helped Jesus carry his cross, and it's a little detail to the story, but has great significance, I think. And another way of putting it is, when was the last time you helped Jesus carry his cross? I'm sitting here thinking of myself. And what does it mean to help Jesus carry his cross?
When you help somebody who is burdened and heavy laden.
Yeah, when you help someone who's burdened and heavy laden. Yep.
When life is tough for somebody and you hold their hand, you've done Jesus' work.
Yep. United Church of Christ Statement of Faith says that he calls us into his church to accept the cost and joy of discipleship, to be his servant in the service of others. And, this doesn't, by the way, mean that you have to take a vow of poverty and be the reincarnation of Mother Teresa. But it means, how seriously do we take our faith? And how do we love it? How do we live it? I'm sorry. And, you look at, again, the dishonest steward. And he went to great lengths to basically, and this is another way of looking at it, just occurred to me. The focus of his life was him. Okay. The focus of his life is me. Okay. The focus of a life of faith, I was going to say, is the other person. And while that is true on occasion, I'm wondering if it's more faithful to say that instead of the focus being me, the focus is us. I kind of like that better.
We're a little responsible for ourselves too.
Right. So yes. So by saying us, it highlights the reality that we have needs too, and it isn't giving all the time and not allowing others to give back, or to say we don't have any needs. I'll give you an example. Okay, so back when the parsonage was next door, and it was the day after Christmas. I think it was the day after Christmas, and I slipped and I broke my I can never remember, it's the tibia or the fibia, whichever the one's the smallest one. Fibula, I mean. And I think it's the fibula, that's the smaller one. Okay. And I couldn't drive. It was my right leg. And I was totally dependent on others. And various people called and said, "Oh, you need anything? You need transportation? I'm going shopping. Can I pick you up a few things?" And that was very difficult for me. But I also had to tell myself, you know what? You need to let people do these things for you. Not only for yourself, but also for them. But also for them.
You don't want to deny them the right to expand themselves by caring for you.
Right.
We're a mutual society. We belong to a mutual admiration society.
And so that's why I instead of saying, the steward is all about me, sons of light, children of light, instead of saying it's all about you or others, I like it better to say it's all about us.
It just brought that flashback to something I referenced before, the magnificent obsession. The more you give away, the more you gain from it.
I'm not familiar with the magnificent obsession.
It's a book that I had referenced before.
Oh, yeah. The more you give, the more you get back. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a sequel. The Magnificent Obsession and Dr. Hudson's Secret Journal are two books one following.
Oh, interesting. Magnificent Obsession.
Yeah.
And
it references a person who was so tied up in their business and themselves, and then they give to others, and they learn the process of giving. They started to give, and the answer when somebody wanted to pay it back is, "You can't. I've already used it up."
Say that again. You've already used it up. Okay.
Yeah, meaning that the goodness of the deed has been used up in doing the deed. You don't want to be paid back for it. You've been paid back by doing it.
Oh, you've been paid back by doing the deed. Right. But if the circumstances warranted and you are in need,
that's a reciprocal. That's the mutual that we have.
Right, the mutuality. Yeah. And again, I hadn't thought about it, but that's another way of looking at this parable. The dishonest steward is all about me. He doesn't care about his master.
No.
He doesn't really care about the guy or the people that he's allowing to reduce their bills. He only cares about me.
He was covering his own backside.
Yes, he was. And, Jesus is basically saying to be like him in the sense of being as shrewd and as committed and as focused on doing God's will as he was and not doing it. Yeah. All righty. So now I got to go and translate this into a sermon. So I thank you. What's that? Yeah, this is 2 weeks in a row that the scriptures have been challenging. Last week it was you have to hate your father and mother, your wife and children, and sister and brother. So I'll see you all on Sunday, and we'll see what we come up with.
One of the things that